And welcome back. Now, as we said right at the top of the show, today marks World International Day of the Girl Child. And evidence from around the world confirms that investing in girls and young women actually creates a ripple effect that yields multiple benefits, not only for individual women themselves, but also for families, communities, and, of course, by extension, for countries. And yet, for girls and young women, the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic has further negatively impacted years of progress that was made towards gender equality. Now, public health outbreaks and school closures have also led to increases in adolescent pregnancy due to the challenges in accessing health services, including sexual reproductive health, HIV and gender based violence services, as well as mental health services. So to talk to us about the challenges and, of course, some of the interventions being made to promote girl empowerment and fulfill their human rights, we're joined by Sarah Reis, who's a gender dynamics specialist with the United Nations Population Fund. Thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So as I was saying there in the introduction, evidence from around the world confirms that if a nation invests in its girls and young women, it creates a positive ripple effect that yields multiple benefits for the women, for their families, for the communities and for their countries. But why is it then, against that very clear evidence, Sarah, that we still see girl children being the most vulnerable to gender inequality and gender-based violence?
Thank you so much for your question and for raising awareness about the importance of investing in girls and also adolescent girls, young women. We see that the gender norms sometimes place women in general in a different position. They have sometimes a lower status in many societies than men. And as you go through the age groups, you see that girls are sometimes they enjoy a lower status in society. That means sometimes they can't make decisions on their own lives. Or, for example, if they want to study, they may be married off early or too early or against their will. If they want to go to access health services, for example, sexual and reproductive health services, they may not find a friendly provider who will give them the information they need to protect themselves. And one important point that also we raise is that for men and boys and for young girls and women, it's important and fundamental for both genders to have access to comprehensive sexuality education. So they actually have information and awareness about their rights, their body, building respectful relationships, building equitable relationships. So all this package, it's necessary, and the support of communities. So the communities that invest and prioritize investing in the girls' education, allowing them to study, allowing them to pursue their potential, that these communities usually flourish and benefit altogether.
And do you find, Sarah, that governments actually put their money where their mouths are in terms of investing more in girl children, given that the benefits of this are multiplied and we know it has been confirmed, we've seen the evidence of that, but are governments actually paying positive attention to it?
Globally, it's difficult to break down sometimes because of data that needs to be disaggregated. So one thing that is really important that the UN as a whole advocates for is to leave no one behind and to reach those furthest behind first. What happens is that sometimes the policies give a strong ground for equal rights and for access to services. However, when it trickles down to the policies, then you see that sometimes the people and girls specifically who are in most hard to reach areas, rural areas, they are farther from services. So that makes them more vulnerable, and the community has to support them as a whole. So it's not only, the saying goes, it takes a village. So it's a multiple package of investments. It takes communities, it takes teachers, parents, men and boys to support, and the governments as well. So it's a multiple package.
So today's International Day of the Girl Child is celebrated under the theme Digital Generation, Our Generation. So please tell us more about selecting this particular theme and also what it's meant to achieve.
The digital aspects of life, especially with the pandemic, we realize how much digital access means for education, for information, even to link people to services. We became more dependent on technology. Technology is a double-edged sword. Sometimes it can help accessing more information and more services, yet we see that girls in many countries, they don't enjoy the same level of access to digital elements, for example, to internet or to cell phones than boys. So sometimes they are furthest behind in that aspect. Also, we see the importance of these services, these digital means for the girls to build, to find information, locate services, have peer support. So the importance, the power of digital technologies. At the same time, we also need to think about how technology is making adolescent girls and adolescent and young boys as well vulnerable to violence. So it's a double-edged sword, as I said, and we need to reflect on how we can harness digital technologies for gender equality.
Now, Sarah, we've seen recently here in South Africa, especially, some horror statistics of girls who have been forced to drop out of school due to teenage pregnancies that have occurred during this pandemic and the subsequent lockdown. And it's either that or they have to drop out of school to care for their households and other siblings, just highlighting some of the issues that girls face. So what interventions do the UNFPA have to deal with some of these challenges that young girls face?
Thank you for this question. And it's not, as I said, it takes a village. It's the UN, United Nations Population Fund, partners with several actors. For example, today we're holding a webinar with the Commission on Gender Equality, the Mayor and Guardian, UNICEF, and British Council and the Global Affairs Canada to exactly talk about how the interventions in several areas, education, health, social services, they can actually benefit girls and allow them to have a positive trajectory, a trajectory that they can choose to be educated, they can still pursue their goals in life and be protected from violence. I would cite a few interventions. For example, in the health sector, we help training and equipping the health providers so they create friendly and non-judgmental services to adolescent girls and young women, especially when they go for contraception, for example. We know for a fact that 31% of girls aged 15 to 24, 31% are still not accessing. They want to access contraception, but they can't because either there is no availability of the service or they don't really understand what's the best method for them. So the information is important. The health providers, to not judge them, to not prohibit them from accessing because legally they can access. So it's important that this package in the health, for example, gives them access. On the other hand, also it's important that they are able to be free from violence. So how the social services play a key role and all the other sectors involved in the National Strategic Plan on GBV, for example, they come together, they have to be connected and help protecting this girl and taking them, if they have a case of violence, that she can be taken from one service to the other through referrals, strong referrals. And we support that as well. And finally, not less important is the community, getting communities awareness and support of the community leaders, parents, teachers, everyone to build a society that really based on positive social norms that enable these girls to flourish.
And one can't help but feel that somehow, as a society, at least in our instance, you know, as a woman, as a mother, you look at the statistics and can't help but feel that we are somehow failing young girls in the main. 23,000 teenage pregnancies between, April 2020 and March 2021. absolutely horrific, and this during a lockdown period. So what role do you believe, Sarah, do you believe places of learning should have in actually raising greater awareness about sexual and reproductive health especially, and also bringing home the rights of young girls and making sure that they are able to enforce those rights?
Thank you so much for this question, and it's very important because education is the first, if not the main service, a public service that the girls and boys are connected to. So the education space can be a space, one, to ensure that life orientation or comprehensive sexuality education is provided in a very evidence-based manner. So using data, using the best methodologies, the newest methodologies, and the UN has a manual on this. So we have, over time, disseminated the best practices to ensure that teachers can take the kids, the adolescent and girls and boys through the information and the services that they need, so they can actually receive the information about their health and also
Well, our apologies there. Seem to have lost that connection there to Sarah Reis, and talking about young girls and young women as we celebrate the the World Day of the Girl Child, and just looking at some of the challenges there. But I believe we have Sarah back. So, Sarah, if we can just maybe just pick up on that last point, just to wrap up the conversation on the Day of the Girl Child being observed today. Sarah, we just lost you there midway through your response. So if you could perhaps just pick it up again for us.
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry for the drop in the connection. So I was saying that the school is the main, if not the first or the main public service or space where the girls and boys have contact with the public services. So it's a very important entry point for them to get not only the right information about comprehensive sexuality education or life orientation. So teachers have an important role to play when providing evidence-based information, and also to give them a sense of safety, that they have the power to consent or not. They have to protect their bodies. They have to build respectful relationships. And also the school can be a space that's connected to the health. There are experiences of the health services being also offered sometimes in alternate times with the schools, so the girls and the boys can leave school and still access the service, the health service, when they need to. And coming to a health service that's non-judgmental.
Oh, that kind of seemed like deja vu, almost at the same place where we lost Sarah again. But unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. That was Sarah Reis, a gender dynamic specialist for the United Nations Population Fund, just talking to us about the International Day of the Girl Child. That's, of course, being observed today. And the objective is to raise awareness about the plight, the difficulty being faced by girls and young women across the world. And, of course, what can be done to halt some of these atrocities that are halting their development and access to things such as health information and, of course, other public services. So want to ponder upon today as we do mark the International Day of the Girl Child. So that's where we're going to leave that one, and we're going to take a quick break before we come to your news at 7.